Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lastia Cahoot. I am your host. I am here with my co-host in life and on this program, Glenn Sheridan. Honeymunch, you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
And today we have another special guest who, again, I'm so super excited about. And this time it is someone who, geez, there are so many things that I could say to describe this individual, this incredible being. And so I'll just start with my big introduction, even though I'm pretty sure it wasn't the first time that I met this person. My big introduction was about 4.5 years ago when Glenn and Milana and I walked into the Center for Spiritual Living, and this was the person who was the spiritual director at the time. And what his energy, his charisma, the things that he talked about, his Sunday talk, his enthusiasm, the live music, everything about that experience was so fantastic. And that was the day that my mind was kind of blown wide open. And it was because of the things that this individual was talking about, the philosophy, the teachings that he was talking about, the concepts, the ideas. And, add that in with some super fun live music, which in a few weeks got us up and dancing. It just made me so grateful for the opportunity to go and experience and attend that kind of community event, because I had never experienced something like that before in terms of, let's say, church. So I fell into classes pretty quickly. And then I don't even know. I think before I even started classes, I'd had an interview with this amazing individual about going into spiritual practitioner studies. And during my first class with him, I actually experienced my call to ministry. And now, fast forward several years later, we're actually in an advanced consciousness studies class together. And so in between and before even then, this individual has such an amazing, varied history that's kind of brought him to where he is right now. He is an ordained Centers for Spiritual Living minister. He is currently the lead minister at Unity of Tucson. And he has dedicated his life to the deepest understanding and experience of the divinity or God essence found within all people, inspiring everyone to recognize this and live this for themselves. He is a native of Tucson, Arizona, although he spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, actually with my teacher as well there, who is our teacher, Dr. James Mellon. He also has a performing background, an entertainment background, and so has he spent much of his adult professional life as a successful theater actor and singer in LA, and has also had success as an Emmy Award nominated television producer in New York City. So let's see, there is so much to talk about. This individual is one of my biggest inspirations, because I sort of feel, from what I can see and observe of his life and what he shares with the world, that whenever inspiration strikes, he acts on it. Like, there is no waiting. It is just, it happens. I sort of do this, but I know it also comes from within. And then he steps into action immediately with just going with the flow of the no kind of thing. And so I know there's so much more to talk about. I know there's so much more to say, but I'm so excited to introduce today someone I consider a friend, a teacher, a mentor, Reverend Jonathan Zenz from Tucson, Arizona. And the first question of the day, as always, is, Jonathan Zenz, who do you think you are?
I am so that introduction, you've given me an opportunity to really hear what you think and your feelings around the things that I've accomplished and the interaction, the personal interaction that we have. And I would say, yes, I am all of those things. And if I let go of all of those things that have preceded me in this moment, like right now, who I am, well, because we're in this advanced consciousness studies class together, like the right answer, I think, is I am consciousness.
Okay, so what's the other or the not right answer? What else would you say?
Yeah, so I'd say the not right answer is I am, and it's the thing that makes me laugh, because it's so it is so common in New Thought ministries to say, I am that which is, I am the infinite divine presence that is flowing through me, and all of that jazz. But those are just words, and you know me, I'm the one who's always saying words are insufficient to express the truth adequately.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I get that I am this expression. And if I think in the sense of separation, I am the vessel for the expression of this divine energy. But I'm more than that. I am the very essence of vitality, showing up in this particular fashion, in this particular incarnation. And it is never tied to anything that has preceded me in the experience of time. And it is never tied to what I think will unfold. I'm always me in this here and now moment.
Do you know, when you just said it is never tied to anything that has preceded, that takes me back to the foundations class that I was in with you. And one of the other, like, mind-blowing moments that I had was when you introduced the spiritual principle is not bound by precedent. And when you explain what that meant, and you kind of explained it in two parts. You explained it in one part, one day, and that was already sort of enough. The idea that nothing that has ever happened before has any bearing on who and what I am right now. And it was just like, whoa, it really opened my mind to the idea that that's then, that happened. That's like, and here I am right now. This is what's happening. And then in the second week, you were talking about it again. And you said, unless you choose to bring it into the present moment with you. But ultimately, it never, ever, ever, ever changes who and what we are at our core.
No.
So it's to this day, and I mean, really, it's only 4.5 years later, but to this day, that is my absolute favorite spiritual principle. It's the one that just has landed like no other for me, and is just, it's the reminder that kind of comes back to me constantly when things are not going maybe the way that I would like, don't feel as good as I would prefer, that it's just like, it happened. It's not happening now. I may be pulling it into the moment by thinking about it now, but ultimately, even that thinking about it never changes, what's underneath, what's inside, what's, who I am, that essence of, who and what I am at the very core. I have goosebumps just thinking about it.
You bring to mind, actually, because I think it is one of the most, in the world of form, in this world that we are experiencing, this world of matter and form and time, it is one of the most expanding ideas that we can really move forward with. For me, it is one of the most deep spiritual, it is one of the deepest spiritual lessons that I feel I have embodied. And I also want to be very clear. Am I a master of letting things go? More so now than I was even 4 years ago, but it's still part of the journey. But I think about, well, I don't know when this is released, so I'm about to make it I'm about to give it a time frame.
That happens.
It might have been about 7 or 8 years ago. It was 2012 or 2013 in Toronto. I was doing a Sunday service. It was about this time in December, and I had this idea. We had all of these toys that we had been collecting for a women's shelter, and and there was this IKEA bag You know, those blue IKEA bags?
Yeah.
And really crinkly sounding. And I grabbed that bag as part of my talk and I said, you know, what if we imagine that all of this is the good stuff that we've experienced in the past and some of it's the bad stuff. We keep filling our bag and we keep filling our bag and we keep filling our bag. And I said, oh, and then we have the spiritual lessons that we learn. And I grab, you know, some books and I start putting books in the bag and I say, and these are all the things that we collect throughout our life. And we keep putting them in the bag and we keep putting them in the bag. Well, eventually the bag becomes too heavy. But we're going to keep dragging that bag around and we're going to keep dragging that bag around and we're going to keep dragging that bag around until we decide that we need to remove some of the things from the bag that no longer serve us, right? And people like in that moment, I could just see people going, I get it, right?
Yeah.
And I have actually used that talk a few times now because it so landed with people because of that visual representation. But we carry that bag and it weighs us down until we decide to, and it's simple. Set the bag down or take stuff out of the bag. Just take it out. You don't need to go into hysterics about, you know, about why you're holding on to the past or the things that are going to keep you from moving into the future. You don't need to do all of that. Just set it down. And then it's always going to that very question that you started with, you know, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
In this moment, who are you? If you set all of that down. And what comes up for me always is, if I'm going to get biblical, I am that I am.
I thought you were going to go with I am God.
You know, God is such a limit. You ready? God is such a limited word for an unlimited idea. That while I utilize the word God, I also recognize that it sets up limitations in people's minds. So it varies for me. Sometimes I'll use it, sometimes I won't. But again, language is a crude way of expressing the infinite.
Oh, okay. There were just a whole bunch of things that came to mind, but I want to go back to the bag because even as you were talking and even as you were moving your body about like, you know, and you're holding onto this bag, it just, as I saw you, I thought working in a chiropractor's office and being involved in a lot of different things over the years in just, you know, even taking care of my own health, you know, in physical ways. That bag, I really like that analogy of the IKEA bag because it's not like oftentimes I hear about, you know, rocks or something in a knapsack, you know, but a knapsack, I mean, you go hiking and you're carrying like 60 pounds of stuff on your back because you're carrying your life on your back, you know, for that journey kind of thing. So that hasn't always kind of worked for me. But this IKEA bag, which for those who listening aren't familiar with IKEA, even though I know it's all over the place, those bags are flimsy. They're made out of, they're strong, but it's this thin, crepey, I don't know if it's like woven plastic or something, but they do tear. And then the straps are just like, you know, a little bit wider than a carabiner, you know, string that you'd put around your neck. And so if you're thinking of, you know, it's full, it's heavy, and it's on your shoulder, it is dragging that one shoulder down. All of these things that you're choosing to carry with you are not only heavy, but they are completely pulling you out of physical misalignment. So the idea of, you know, like trauma, you know, whether it's emotional or physical or words or whatever that, you know, just become intertwined, you know, with the thoughts and beliefs that we have, knowingly or unknowingly, that we're carrying this bag that we continue to choose to keep carrying, weighs us down. We become physically misaligned because of this bag full of stuff that we're carrying. And even if we're like, oh, you know what, maybe if I carry it this way, well, you're still carrying this extra weight and then it's gonna, you know, go. So really it's just, you know, kind of makes me think of all the different ways that people go to correct their physical ailments from the outside with just dealing with the symptom rather than deal with the bag, deal with what's in the actual bag. And that will help you to, you know, realign, not only mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically as well. So that is a great visual for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for that reflection. Because I'm someone who has had chiropractic care most of my life. You know, and I have lived under the delusion. You ready? I've lived under the false illusion, I should say, not the delusion. I've lived under the false illusion that I am weighted with back problems, right?
Ah, okay. Yeah.
The minute I decided that that was not the reality, I have found now, I want to try to be very clear. Once I decided that that was not my reality, number one, I am plagued less with the experience of back issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that's number one. Number two, if I find myself feeling like something might be coming on, I am in a place of decision around whether or not I will accept it. But I also have to be open to not just doing the mental work, but accepting the things in the world of form that are the reflection of the mental work to address the issue, which means, oh, I feel something coming up. It's time for me to stretch my hamstrings.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like you activate what is reflected back to you from your consciousness, which is so okay. You ready?
Ready.
Which is what makes me a little, it triggers me a little bit right now with the pandemic.
Okay.
And the thing that happens sometimes with people reflecting back to me when I decide that it is appropriate to keep the church closed on Sundays to having people in service, people say, well, you're a New Thought minister, you're operating out of fear. And I say, I'm absolutely not operating out of fear. I'm operating from the consciousness of compassion. I'm operating from the consciousness of care, which says that this is the right and appropriate action because the virus is as much God as I am.
Mm-hmm.
It exists. Let us not go into a place of denial around that. Let us accept that it exists. And we have the tools that are reflected back to us from the consciousness of love and care that say, this is how you move through this time with grace and with ease. And it's not forever either. Anyway, that it's been one of those points of like irking me this year.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw in a little Eric Butterworth line that I love from Spiritual Economics. It came to pass. I just when that came up in practitioner studies in year 2, and it was a line that I kind of had skimmed over in the chapter that we had been assigned, and there were a whole bunch of other things that I focused on, but someone else in the class brought it up, and when that person said it, when I heard it, spoken, I just thought, oh, it's so much more than this too shall pass. It's just, it came to pass, like it's happening, and it's meant to be temporary. It's meant to be impermanent because change is happening, constantly.
Yeah.
And it was just, wow, that was another kind of, very opening sort of thing.
And what if this is a reflection of the collective consciousness to say we need to be stepping into better expressions of care for each other. We need to be stepping into better expressions of cooperation in service to the whole, right? It's not just about me, it's about the wholeness. And if I am aligned in that wholeness with unity, right? Then I have, for me, that leads me into the direction of having no other option but to act from care, no matter what.
And ultimately, or not necessarily ultimately, but no, ultimately, when we're acting from care, we know it. Like we feel it, we know it. It feels good. It feels right. There's no, I don't know, maybe, like there's no questioning. It's just like, we know it, it's there because it comes from that foundation of truth. One of the things that I found so fascinating that kind of turned things around for me a few months into, at least when we had our, what's it called? First state of emergency in BC here back in April, I think it was. Maybe March. Anyway, was shortly after that, I read a blog post by someone who's a practicing Buddhist. And she wrote about the new intimacy and how wearing masks, social distancing, she was seeing it as a form of like the new intimacy, of the new compassion, of the new caring for each other, and how even us physically distancing from each other was bringing us closer together as one because of this not always mutual, but if we kind of go, beyond, the form and the experience and the conditions and the opinions and, am I following the rules or not kind of thing, that underneath it, that was coming, distracted by a bird, that was coming from truth of this just universal love
Yeah.
to keep moving forward in a way that everyone was being taken care of.
Right.
And I thought that was such a neat way to look at it, that physically this is what's happening, but energetically and emotionally and spiritual, or not even emotionally but spiritually, this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, even though I had a bit of at the beginning, I was fine. About a month into it, it became very rocky for me. And that was part of the impetus that led me to leaving my job. However, it was also, do I want to stay here and sort of feel like I'm fighting, fighting, fighting? Or do I want to let this go, take it out of my bag, and move into the work and the beingness that I really, really, really want to embody? And do I want to, do I want to put my consciousness, my energy on this, or do I want to put it on this? And so I chose to put it on this. And it took like so much extra meditation, so much extra contemplation, extra prayer partner time, like extra, 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 to not be pulled apart into all of this and just keep coming back to, this is who I am. This is who and what I am. This is what I know myself to be. So it has been, and it continues to be interesting as things evolve and progress and unfold and ebb and flow and all of that. Honey Bunch, do you want to chime in here with anything? Because I mean, we all have, I know I have, you have opinions. However, like, what would you like to say? Because we've had some conversations where.
Well, I'm very grateful that I have Lasia to remind me of something that I have to remind myself about often, but not often enough. And the idea of just each of us has our own belief system, and those beliefs are creating our experience with our expectations and, of course, our desires, like what is our forward momentum, what is the action I want to be in the world, that kind of thing. And the interesting thing about beliefs, and I'm curious to know what you think about this, Jonathan. So we have this global consciousness thing happening where I think it was decided globally, or the human consciousness as one, and maybe animal consciousness and everything else too, decided, oh, let's just pause because we can. We may not think that we can because we've been doing these things over and over, day by day, month by month. We have so much history to show, oh, this is what we are now. Like, this is what humanity does. This is life on Earth, But we actually can stop at any time and say, oh, we can actually go in this direction or just do nothing for a while, So I know that we decided on a mass scale to just stop, right? I think it appears in our experience, in terms of like what caused what, that something happened in China in the late part of 2019, and there was some frantic denial and bad decisions being made, and so forth and so on. And then you fast forward to around spring of this year, and you have this appearance of a virus that is going to potentially cause extensive harm, and I think it's probably wise to stop everything at that point and say, what do we know? What can we do? What do we not do? Right. So I think we did that, right? I think most countries in the world decided to take a similar approach in terms of like what they knew at the time. We're going to limit our interactions with one another in various ways. We'll put it that way. So my thing now is that I think what each of us has been able to do with more time on our hands, I've been working pretty much nonstop throughout this. I've had a couple of days off, but it's just been regular work hours for me. But for many people, they're just at home. They're, what I heard the phrase the other day, they have the stuck home syndrome, like it's like a weird kind of, what is this, but you're getting used to yourself again. It's like, it's awkward sometimes just to sit and be in a non-routine, but our I think what we're facing is a little bit of like kind of mirror work, where like we're forcing ourselves to ask these questions about like, what, who am I? What am I doing? What is my role in this society? What is society? What is our, what are our national priorities? What do we do as a species? And I remember those first few months where like the skies are getting clearer, and there's no air travel, and there was more animals around. You could hear birds more. The fewer cars and trucks on the road, and it's just like, oh, this is really kind of exquisite in a strange way. It's like, it's like going to the country. I mean, we kind of live in the country, but it was like going from a city to the countryside, and like no matter where you were, it was kind of like that for a while. I think that the flip side of that is the belief side of it. The belief questioning is like, people are now uncertain. Many people are uncertain as to what is it that's going on, and how do I know that it's going on? How do I trust that it's going on? And I think elements of this have spun off into the U.S. election, in terms of like the division of, where do you get your media, and what is that media telling you? So we have this thing now where there's a lot of backlash against the trusted media, because remember the beginning part, and especially in the States, where the don't wear masks, it doesn't make a difference, and now it's like, well, we have to wear masks, because any little bit will help, right? So people have become, I think, very skeptical. I don't want to say people, but like many people have decided, like, I just don't know who to believe anymore. Like, so there's actually then a good side to that, because then you can just go back to yourself and say, yeah, what do I believe? What do I place my trust in? And if you can push through those whatever you call them in New Thought, secondary causation or whatever, like whatever's going on isn't what's going on. Like it's a reflection of that struggle and kind of questioning within yourself, and within consciousness in general. So that's why I feel optimistic and good and trusting about whatever's happening in the world, whatever appears to be happening in the world, because I just know that this is all unfolding in a constructive way. Right. There are shifts in the psyche of human consciousness, and that, I think, that can only be good overall, even though there may be some really big shakeups in, obviously, politics and media. And I don't like seeing the arts taking such a big hit, and I don't like seeing, as we were talking, or you're saying earlier, the churches that are kind of empty. And ironically, we used to drive past, like established churches and think, boy, how many people are they getting in there? Like, I mean, we take back a year and think their numbers must be really down. Like, you don't see hardly anyone in the parking lot. In these circumstances, these are kind of ideal circumstances to fill those pews. Like, even social distance, you would still have technically a full house, right? I was kind of thinking about, like, what if you had 50 people in there quite comfortably sitting in a large church? Like, it could still be done, even though people are like, I don't want to put myself at risk. And I appreciate that. I understand it, but I like looking at those ways of like, there's another way to look at it, and we just have to like imagine it better. I guess that's all.
Yeah. You know,
That's
you bring up for me, and this to me is one of the fundamentals when we're immersed. I mean, we're consistently immersed in circumstances, right? That's part of the experience of life. We are consistently immersed in circumstances, and the circumstances shift and maneuver and change, and they are reflections of our consciousness, but they are reflections of the collective consciousness as well. And the power that we have in any given moment, I think, more than trying to manipulate circumstances or change the circumstances, is to address what is our relationship to the circumstances. And in shifting our relationship to the circumstances, that's where we truly find the essence of healing, I believe. You know, I could very easily, and I've been on this teeter-totter of being really upset around the experience that we're having right now. But I also look at it and say, I have the potential for stepping back, assessing my value in the world in a way that I maybe haven't had the opportunity to do in a long time, because I'm consistently involved in all the stuff, in all the flow, in trying to maintain a business, because church is a business, right? Trying to make sure that the business is operating efficiently and effectively, to make sure that my relationship, my marriage is operating efficiently and effectively, rooted in love, to make sure that I'm keeping all of this stuff. You know, it's like, and again, it's like I keep putting all of this stuff that I need to handle into that bag.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the whole world just saying, just let the bag go, step back, deepen into an assessment, and maybe take the time to reflect on your relationship to these circumstances. That's how I have taken it. This is a great opportunity to step into reflection. And you saw that I was like, there's a little hair, just a little floating like cat hair. But having the opportunity to reflect on those relationships, the relationship to the entire world. I think that's the benefit of this pandemic, which, let's not forget, pandemic means essentially one world, right? It means it is associated with the idea of wholeness, of all one, right? Pandemic means all one. And so if we step away from thinking that it's this challenging, horrible experience, and step into the opportunities that exist within the experience, I think a lot of us would be a lot happier.
Yeah, just one follow-up last, just quickly.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot what you just said there. Some word tripped something in my mind, but it's the belief thing. It's the vaccination thing. That's going to be the next iteration of how do we go forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm not anti-vaccination, but the point is, I don't take them, but I know that if people believe, it's down to, what do you believe, right? Do you believe that you are, and I guess, why do you believe it? If you believe that you are inoculating yourself against something to boost your immune system versus to protect you from this killer virus or what, or anything, or, you know, doesn't have to be this particular virus, but so it's important to sort of look at it and say, well, it's the mindset and the sort of trust element that is at play in each of us when we decide, I'm lining up first thing to get this as soon as it's available to me, or I don't really care, I'll probably get it, or I'm in the middle, you know, or I'm just, there's no way I'm putting anything on my body, you know, and you can't force me, and blah, blah, blah. And then you get into that whole slightly conspiracy centered way of thinking. So but I think it's just important to remember that when people are like, especially vocal about it, just like, so you can still let it wash over you, even if that opinion is completely contrary to your own, because that's their beliefs, right? That's their like, and you don't necessarily know where they're coming from. Like I personally have, you know, especially living with Last Day, it's like we have done a pretty good job of boosting our immune system, and our own mental mindset is so much a part of that. Is like, you live healthily if you nourish yourself and be aware of, you know, all of these things around us are all just part of the earth, because we are all the earth, you know. So we're just being in harmony. But there's energy that can go into food, and there's energy that can go into other things that we put on our bodies and in our bodies that are like, that doesn't, you know, you can be, I don't want to overthink this, but like, just remember that, oh, I'm healthy. I'm not under siege by these invisible, you know, my body can handle what evolution has thrown at humanity for, you know, since time immemorials. It's like, I'm in good shape, you know.
Mhm.
And if I'm aware of that, I'm like way more than half the way there of just being immune from most things. Never mind this one that's getting all the PR and the news at the moment. But anyway, back to you, Last. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, that I really appreciate that you just brought all that up, because it just, the beliefs, it just for me keeps coming down to beliefs. And even what you were just talking about, you know, why someone would choose to either get vaccinated or not get vaccinated, get a flu shot versus not get a flu shot, take supplements or not take supplements. It all comes down to, you know, the belief behind the choice. And I think it's, I was even having a conversation with my mom. I don't know if she'll ever listen to this, but I was having a conversation with my mom yesterday, who did get a flu shot this time, this year, for the first time in many years. And in previous, like when she stopped getting them, she was like, you know, I don't need to get it. I don't, you know, I'm done with it, kind of thing. But this year she got it for whatever reasons. And if the vaccination were available right now for coronavirus, she would probably get it. And so, you know, yet she is coming here to visit, as long as her flight doesn't get canceled, you know, next week. She is planning on coming here to visit, and we are planning to see her, and she's going to be, you know, staying with our sister. And for me, the choice for her to come here, even though there are all sorts of rules in place, she lives on her own. She doesn't even have pets. And so she feels incredibly isolated because of the rules and the mandates that are happening in Alberta right now. And so coming here, you know, going through an airport, being on a plane, going through another airport, and then even having to officially self-isolate for 2 weeks once she comes here, she's still going to be with other people, you know, with her family, which she feels bolstered just, you know, by the idea, by the very thought, by the anticipation and excitement of coming here. That, you know, is, to me, just seems so much more life affirming than, no, I'm going to stay home and follow the rules because I've been told to do so. Because she's lonely, you know. Yeah. And so I like, come on down, you know, like, we're here and we all get to at least, you know, be together. And this is, you know, kind of brings me to the interesting point of, we're talking in class and in science of mind, and I'm thinking in unity, and anywhere where someone is talking about oneness, and that there is this one creative, infinite, universal energy that is always in play and is the underlying essence of everyone and everything that is, was, and ever will be. So energy just is, right? And even us talking right now through this conversation, I'm feeling, you know, expanded and goosebumps from time to time as some like super amazing point that just resonates, you know, like occurs. And so, yes, you know, I can talk with my mom on the phone, and she could get on Zoom if she wanted to, and start to connect with other people who could get on Zoom if they wanted to. However, being closer in proximity with someone, there's just, for me anyway, something about being, the person is right there, like I can go and give Glenn a hug. I can pick up our cat Mercury and hold her and just like feel her little beating heart and her purring, like vibrating through my being. I'm not going to say my mom's going to be purring and meowing, but there is something to be said for that. And to be able to offer people the opportunity to come out of that kind of isolation, that kind of feeling of loneliness, and actually be in community with people in person. I just, I I I I I I don't know how to say it, because I would love for there to be the value of that to be recognized more than if we come together, we're automatically just putting ourselves at risk of contracting this super strong, killer virus that statistically, when you go to the world of form and look at statistics, isn't even as lethal or strong or, as some other things have been that have come before it, where all of these measures that are taking place right now didn't happen, with those other things that were maybe stronger, more lethal, that kind of thing. So anyway, so that just, I'm back to the beliefs part. I just, it really kind of, when Glenn was talking, it just made me think about the why. Why are people choosing, to do two things or to not do things? And if it's coming from or whether it's coming from a place of, because I know who and what I am, and I am confident that, as Glenn says, I live in a safe universe, the universe is good, the universe is for me. Or is it because I feel like, again, like Glenn said, I'm under siege, which brings us back to what Reverend Jonathan said earlier, that the virus is God. It's all God. It's all an expression of that one universal energy. So how could you be attacking yourself, unless you're choosing to attack yourself, and then you're separating yourself? And how could you separate yourself when it's all one thing? So that just kind of all whatever. And then just back to the reflection, Reverend Jonathan, when you were talking about reflection a few minutes ago and talking about the word pandemic, it kind of made me think of, there's this little book, I don't know if you've read it, called I think it's by Marie Kondo, The Magic of Tidying Up, or something like that.
I know of it. I haven't read it.
Okay, so it was recommended to us when we were leaving Toronto by one of the musicians who was at the Leslieville Farmers Market. It was actually recommended to Glenn. He said he hadn't read it, but someone who was living with him, I think, had read it. Glenn could tell the story if it has to be told. I read the book, and that was the inspiration for me to say goodbye to 75% of our stuff before we moved here, because we knew that we wanted to unload it and not bring it with us. And part of it is reflection. Every single thing, like you go through every single thing that you have, and you decide whether it brings you joy or not. Mm-hmm. And if it brings you joy, you keep it. And if it doesn't, you reflect on it, you say thank you, and you let it go. Mm-hmm. And that sort of feels like, to me, is what there is, for some people anyway, more of an opportunity to do right now, which is, the reflecting on what I've been, back to the bag, carrying in the bag, for so long, especially now during circumstances, around COVID. There's more time to reflect on what's in that bag, and, is it serving me? Is it bringing me joy? And if not, there's the, if you want to call it the old beliefs, the old me, whatever, and you get to release it. And I just, that bag analogy metaphor is just fantastic.
Well, so you have now sparked joy in me. I just want to say, you bring up a point that I think is not made often enough in New Thought and in spiritual circles, because we spend so much time trying to let go of the perception of the negative past, mm-hmm. right? And we talk about let go of the negative, let go of that which no longer serves you, let go, let go, let go. But we spend very little time saying, you know what, I want to acknowledge the good that has gotten me here. And I want to maintain that consciousness of good that is rooted in a loving presence that is who and what I am. So what is it that sparks joy, even from my past, that I may have in that bag? And let's take a moment to honor that as well. Not just look for the things that we want to get rid of, but really what are the things that we also want to keep?
Yeah. And that goes back to what you just talked about shifting or changing your relationship to, you know, the stuff in the bag.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
You know, my husband hates that I like that there are things that I keep around, right? But I'm like, this is something that, you know, and I don't keep a lot. I am in, irrespective of the way my office looks right now, I am a minimalist in very many ways. I don't like to keep stuff around. And I've moved through being the ultimate, what's the word that I can't think of the word, but I have lived my life with amazing amounts of nostalgia for so long, and I've had to let a lot of that go because I have looked and said, these things that I'm holding on to are just things, but there's that core essence of me that is, you know, that is moved beyond what these things elicit in me as feelings. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so I've become much more of a minimalist after having been so nostalgic for so many years. And there's still things here and there that I'm nostalgic about. Like I have a collection, actually, I don't think you can see it very well, but I have a collection of cats figurines.
Oh, I see one sitting on the top.
Yeah, there's one right up there. It's folk art from all over the world that my mother collected for me in her world travels. And she knew that I loved cats. And so she collected these things. I look at that and I'm like, is this something I necessarily would have obtained for myself? Maybe not. And yet there is a feeling that is associated with the thing that is beyond the figurine. It is that relationship that I have with my mother, right? And so there's so much always at play in all those things. We keep going back to the bag, into all of those things that are in the bag. And it's not just one answer with any single one of them, right? They may represent something that is beyond what we perceive to be. You know, I always talk about things at the level of awareness and below the level of awareness. And a lot of the connections that we are holding on to are connections we hold on to below the level of awareness. As we draw up into the level of awareness, then we make decisions about it. But if it's below the level of awareness, we're living within a pre-established decision to maintain, usually.
Yeah, and that's what we are talking about a lot in our class on Thursday, about, you know, living from those preconditioned notions and the idea of this is what I've been up until now, living in that sort of, you know, 95% of just memory, you know, and creating from memory, or even secondary causation, but it doesn't necessarily have to feel bad. Or are we choosing to live from that, you know, conscious, you know, 5% of infinitude, you know, those infinite waves of possibility and that potentiality that is always in play? It's a choice, and it's something that you definitely, you know, you need to be aware of, because there's just so much that, you know I do throughout my life, throughout my day, that is just done by rote almost. Whether it's, you know, driving or brushing my teeth. I mean, like I do every now and then, I will, you know, like try and do things, you know, with a different hand or whatever, or stand on another foot or something like that, just to mix it up. So it's not always the same thing. And then there's some things which actually, rituals that really do just nourish my soul, and that I will do on a consistent basis, whether it's daily or every few days or weekly, or, you know, cyclically over the seasons or something like that. So it's interesting to compare, but awareness definitely is key.
Yeah, you know, you bring up this idea that, let's face it, we are expressions, they say creatures of habit. I like to say expressions of habit. right? If we had to be consciously aware of every single thing and aspect of what it takes to live the magnificent life that we live, I think we would be overwhelmed. So habit actually has value, and ritual has value, and those routines have value. Ernest Holmes wrote, "At the root of all habit is one thing: the desire to express life."
Mm.
You know, and I think if we trust in that desire to express life, we will never be led astray, whether we are rooted in something that is habitual or we choose to move away from that which is habitual once we have recognized that it's a habit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But those things are like that 90 whatever percent below the level of awareness is still active. We're aware of the 10 or so percent at the level of awareness, but it's 100% that is creating our experience.
Mm. Okay. Oh, wait, Honey Bunch, were you going to say something? I was going to just go in a different direction.
Okay, go in a different direction. I've got stuff I want to talk about, but that's fine.
Oh, well, no, go ahead.
Oh man.
It's coming. It's coming. It's bubbling up to the surface. I see it.
Before we were recording, Jonathan and I were just briefly talking about that I'd been listening to Eric Butterworth's. There's some stuff on YouTube and whatever. So his thing about, like, he has such little nuggets that he throws in that I just think, wow, that's really the way to look at it, you know. And one of the things he brought up in this one talk was the idea that, and it is a given that he doesn't use the word God as a personification or an anthropomorphized being. You know, it's everything. It's love. We'll accept that that's what he generally means, right? But he has this thing about you know, there's God, and then there is a smile on the face of God, and that's you. And you cannot remove that expression from the face of God any more than you can take your own smile off your face and put it somewhere and like look at it and record it. And, you know, so we're each this expression of God, and it's an ongoing experience, you know. So I love this idea that it's just, you know, I've also heard like, oh, we're all a hair on the head of God, but that's too, you know, that's too anatomical, right? For this is like expression, like smiling, which again, we're kind of missing out on because of the masks. It's like, I have no idea what you're doing behind there, buddy. I don't know.
Look at the crinkle in the eyes. You can tell.
Yeah. Maybe they had Botox. Yeah, I don't know. So it's like, so that one, then that gets me into the question for you, that both our experience at CSL Toronto, where we first saw that love only, you know, the 3-part thing that GTC came up with, and you use also, I believe, still. So it's love only, forgive everything, remember who you are, right? Now, I got it this time.
You got it.
So here's my thing. The love only, the way that some people are uncomfortable with the idea of saying God, or I am God, or, you know, that kind of thing. I realized that for me to insert the word instead, because love is a process. It's being. It's just like being. You're being, and that's love. If you're doing it right, all of the forgiveness stuff comes easily, and you don't even notice because it's just who you are. Right? You're being who you are. So if I insert the word trust there, that works way better for me. That is more who I am if I say that, like, trust only. To me, that works, right? If you did not have that as your kind of like anchoring, what would you call it? It's a series of it's not affirmations, it's just like truth statements. What would you have for that love part? Is there another workable phrase for you?
So I refer to them as the tenets of
Tenets. Okay.
the tenets of my ministry, really, that I've adopted. And yeah, giving great credit to Dr. James Mellon, who's the one who coined those. I've come to reconcile in my own mind the word love, because I don't consider it in the same way that I think most people consider. Love is much more than a verb. It is much more than a noun. It is a verb and a noun. It is the essence for me of creation. It is the very activity of creation. And so that's how I've come to understand it. It is both the activating agent in the relationships that I have with other people, that can be reflected in ways that are more intimate or less intimate, but it's still rooted in love, as love. And it is the very point and purpose for me of being on this plane of action, having this experience. Because absent that, and I can only call it an energy, and again, it goes to the thing that I always talk about, Lassie, I will tell you, I am the biggest vocal proponent of saying, we do not have words sufficient. Love isn't even the sufficient word for what I'm trying to get at, but it's the one that feels closest to me right now. And so I don't know that I have a word to replace love. I get trust, but even in that, trust feels more limited than love for me.
Okay.
So this takes me back to our class on Thursday, where Reverend Jonathan and I were in a discussion pod together, which we have every single class. We're supposed to be mixed up, and it's supposed to be completely random, yet I seem to be in the same pod with the same people over and over again. Anyway, so I read my paper, because we read our papers to each other, and then one is selected to be read to the entire class from each pod. And in my paper, I was thinking of you again, Reverend Jonathan, of this idea that words limit for people listening, I have no words. I'm just kind of moving my body of expanse and whatever, to describe whether it's love, God, consciousness, quantum consciousness, allness of being, source, whatever you want to call it. And so I made up a whole bunch of words and threw them in my paper when I was writing my paper, because I thought, I get it, and I've said it myself over and over and over again as well, but I don't like the idea of, because I am who I am right now, in this moment, that I don't necessarily want to articulate it, but the fact that I maybe am not able to, because of the scope of me in this moment. It's like, well, why? I don't even want to think that I might be, limiting or something like that. So I don't even want to think that way. Wait a second. Where was I going with this thought? I was trying too many tangents here. Back to the idea of limit. Oh, shoot.
You were reading your paper.
I was reading my paper, making up the words. It had to do with love. Which okay, maybe this will get me back there. Do you equate love with God? Is God, or is love synonymous with God, consciousness, whatever, the most epic, ultimate term that you could come up with at this moment to describe that, whatever it is that is the essence of all that is love that?
I do now.
Okay.
I didn't always.
Because isn't that what is meant to be in the love only part? That it's not just like just go and love everyone only, you know, see
Right.
everyone only. It's just that's all there is.
It's not about the activity of love. It's about recognizing the essence of love that is expressing as you.
Mm-hmm.
That's so, yeah, essentially I utilize love as a synonym for God, as a synonym for consciousness, as a synonym for quantum energy, as a synonym for, you know, all those things. And again, none of them are sufficient to express what it really is. You know, I would almost go to say,
I know what it was going to be. I know what it was
yeah.
going to be. Can I just, before I lose it, none of them are sufficient because, and I just thought of this as you were saying this before, because we are always evolving. We, as that love, as that creative energy, as that, and I mean, this is just, you know, limiting, you know, maybe itself, but it's something that's always changing, that's always growing, that's always becoming. So how could we put a little bow on it and just like, this is what it is. Oh, there is something, because it's always, it's kind of, Glenn, like you say, the universe is always new. Now. It just, it's so evolutionary and like how, you know, but I guess because we communicate with language, having a word or two or 10 or 20, you know, for it would be good to be able to communicate if you can't see people just like using their body and, you know, gesticulating in different ways. That's what kind of came to me, was that because it is infinite, you know, even the word infinite
is limiting.
Yeah. So that's what came to mind for me.
Because we can't conceive of infinity. If you really, really think about infinity, we cannot conceive of infinity. It's beyond the level of our consciousness, or the use of consciousness, because there's always going to be an edge that we perceive even when we talk about infinity. If we talk about infinity and we talk about the universe, we still perceive an edge of the universe in some fashion, right? I don't think that we're equipped in this incarnation to really, and maybe this is part of the evolution we're moving through. I don't think we are equipped at this point to really understand the nature of infinity. We certainly can't talk about it because you then limit infinity.
There is something that happens for me when I start to contemplate something like even the word infinity or infinitude or universe, kind of like after seeing that Hubble telescope exploration of, you know, space. Oh no, wait, there's more. And then like, oh wait, in that space, there's more. There's something physically that happens to me, and I'm not sure that I can describe it because it's not happening. Well, it's like on the way, but it's, you know, I'm there and it doesn't last long, you know, when I start to contemplate, and then there's almost this sort of like, there's some kind of physical shift that happens, physical and energetic shift that happens in my body, where it's like, that's enough, or that's as far as you can go right now. It just like, and I feel it every single time. And I don't remember sort of that happens until after I've experienced it, you know, again, except, and I guess maybe because we're talking about the word and the concept, and just even in closing, you know, my eyes, you know, where there's just nothing, and just sort of, you know, trying to just sort of like keep going with the nothing. At some point I open my eyes, or, you know, some other, something happens and it's just like, nope, there's an end.
Yeah.
It's an interesting experience.
You know, I always talk about, like, often when I go into affirmative prayer treatment, I will talk about what it means to close our eyes. Because I'll say, if it's comfortable, you know, as we all do when we're leading people in prayer, if it's safe and comfortable, if you'd like to close your eyes, you're welcome to do so. But I say, I choose to close my eyes because it allows me to take my attention to that inner life, to that inner essence, which I know is the core of creation. And so everything that flows forth from that becomes the expression of that inner essence. So when I focus on that inner essence, that is I will say, it is a limited way of trying to assess and not assess, but to access the infinite, right? And I agree with you. when we watched that video of the Hubble Space Telescope, like the deep field image, it's very eye-opening to say there is so much more than there's so much more beyond our limited scope and perception. So that's why when I have my eyes open, I am limiting myself to the experience of what I see. When I close my eyes, I'm opening up the potential experience, because then I'm rooted in imagination and intuition and allowing those things to be utilized in my experience and expression. And we equate everything with time and space, because that is the experience we're living in, right? That's the way that is the construct around which we talk about all of these concepts. And all these concepts are beyond time and space, which again is why we have no sufficient way of actually talking about it, because all language is rooted in time and space.
I guess we're done. No.
Okay.
Yeah, and it just on that video of the deep field, it just kind of takes me to, we look up at the stars and we even imagine, but it wasn't until, the Hubble telescope, found or like produced those images after finding that there's more beyond what we know to be, that now, my mind has been expanded to, there's more. Okay. Infinitude. What's that like? And so, oh my God. Yeah.
Okay. So you ready for this now?
Okay.
If we're talking about the quantum aspects of this, did those things even exist before they were observed?
Okay.
And who is the observer? Are we the observer? Are we the subjects or objects of expression and experience? Are we the observed or the observer? I mean, that's a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, we could be here talking for days around that.
Oh, look at the time.
And we would never find the answer.
Okay, yeah, Glenn, go ahead.
Yeah, see, this is where, like, oh boy. Where do I put something? I just need to anchor myself to something here. I hear what you just said, that's in terms of time and space. I think we all kind of know that, of like, when we think about it long enough, we use time and space as our agreed upon framework and context. So that we may communicate and share experiences. But I think the more that science and spirituality kind of are meeting up here, and when I say spirituality now, I also mean, like, the Vedas and the other spiritual traditions from thousands of years ago, that just knew this stuff because they'd studied it, as well, to a great degree. But for me, it's easier to, rather than be overwhelmed by the vastness of space and the quirky ideas about time, I find it much more comforting and understandable to see, for example, the planets and the sun as being, these are entities. They are living beings of some kind, especially the sun, because there's so much evidence of, like, it's going all the time. There's energy, and it can't just be an inert kind of dead thing when it's giving out this loving energy all the time. So I prefer to see that as my own evidence that we have a relationship with this being, and it nurtures nonstop. It gives and gives, and it creates life for us, and it helps us be who we are, right? It's a bit more removed when we're looking at, even this thing with Jupiter and Saturn, the conjunction that's coming up on the 21st December. That's supposed to be like a major shift in influence. We'll say, I don't really believe in that stuff that much, but I know that there's, two bodies of mass getting closer and closer. Something's going to happen. So anyway, where was I? What do you feel about that? Like the sun is another example of something that we don't quite understand, but it's undeniable in its effects and its influence. It has been worshipped as God by many groups of people throughout time as we know it. So, do you have a sense of sort of that is what's going on, or do you just see it as a physical object that just happens to be close to us?
Well, I think it's a reflection of, I think it's a macrocosmic reflection of the microcosm. And what I mean by that is everything is energy, the perception of energetic output that the sun have in this world of form seems to be greater than other outputs of energy from what we might look at as, our own bodies. And yet, I believe if you take it down to the fundamental energy that makes up all creation, the energy is the same, irrespective of how it's showing up. And so, and I think that, you brought something up because it's so funny. When we're done here, I'm going to go and tune up my telescope so that I can see the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn on the 21st. But you bring up an interesting point that if everything is energy and in the physical world, that there's a relationship of energy going on at any given time, that our physical location relative to some other aspect of energy is in and of itself a thing that can shift the energetic flow of the thing itself. And I don't know that I'm articulating this very well or very clearly, but there's something in my brain that I think is going to require some deeper consideration and contemplation. But as energy, because we're in a constant state of movement, right? There's nothing that is not in a constant state of movement. So as this energy movement happens in this world of form, it is consistently reorganizing itself to as a reflection of creation. But I also think, we talked about secondary causation, which is, I'm going to simplify that word for you, reaction. That's all secondary causation is. It's reaction. And so everything is always in reaction to everything else. We are always in reaction to everything else. And so as as that reactionary thing morphs and transmutes and moves and does its thing, I think that it is a potential for deepening. And that's really what I want to get to. In the contemplation of it, for me, helps alleviate the need to feel like I have to understand the infinite nature, because the infinite nature is not just in what I perceive as the bigness of it or the macrocosm, but it is also in the microcosm. It is also in the deepest, smallest particulate element, subatomic, experience that I can imagine. And ultimately, that's what it really all boils down to. Everything we experience is all born of our imagination.
Yep. Thank you, Neville, for saying that.
Okay, so I have a question. So here we are talking about these two massive bodies of energetic expression, these planets that are coming, in alignment and closer and whatever it is that you guys were just talking about. And there are so many people who believe that because that is happening, because they're coming closer together, that somehow it's going to, just by their being closer together, is going to affect us on this planet. Well, if these two big, masses are planets and balls of energy, expressions of energy, that are going to somehow have an impact on us. Isn't that the same thing that happens when people are in a room together? And like right now, under COVID circumstances, the people coming together, you know, if it has to be social distance, okay, fine. But being able to hug someone, why that feels that is a different kind of experience than talking with someone on the phone or talking with someone through a screen.
Yes, and.
Yes, and okay.
Yes, and. The conjunction of those two planets is only from our perspective.
Yes.
If you move to another part of the solar system, they're not in conjunction. It's from our perspective.
Right. Yeah.
That we have this experience of seeing the alignment of these two things, but you shift in another direction, that's not what you would perceive. It's not what you would see.
Well played.
It's similar to when you think of the sun coming up, it's like the sun's moving across the sky. Well, no, we're moving. It looks like the sun's moving across the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Which is interesting because it takes me back to my second question was, isn't that from a very Newtonian perspective? Yet this brings to mind observer effect, which is quantum worldview.
Yeah.
So, wow. Once again.
Yeah, the poor audio podcast listeners are not going to see all these head explosions. It's very graphic.
I'm going closer to my screen, but no, my mic is over there. Yeah. Lots of mind-blowing moments today through this conversation. Okay. We're back from a brief break. Let's go back to where we were. Oh yeah, I know. I was going to take it in a different direction. So we've been talking about energy, and what I really wanted to ask, because one of the biggest things are sort of feeling memories that I have from my first experience at CSL Toronto when we first encountered you, was the energy, the vibrancy, the aliveness. I mean, even at the beginning, I can't remember exactly what it was. You would say, something about, we did some research on you, we knew you were coming, something. And then, everybody would say, you are magnificent. And yeah, there was just all of this energy. And some of the biggest stuff, or part of that energy for me, was the music, the live music, 5, 7 new songs, different songs every single Sunday. And a few weeks after coming there, then I started volunteering on the soundboard, which for me was just one of my favorite times of the week. To come down there an hour and a half earlier, or whatever it was, before meditation started, as the band and you were doing the sound check, and to be there, present, witnessing, and, active in that experience when people were, the musicians who were coming together for the one and only time they practiced together, before Sunday celebration, to make sure that they were all playing in the same key. Maybe they wanted to switch keys, that the arrangement was working the way that they thought that it would before they came together, the changes that would happen. And even during Sunday celebration, there was one Sunday, I think it was after one of the big shootings that happened, where you had planned to sing a certain song at the end, but then you guys collectively decided to sing the song that you sang at the beginning again, just because that's where everyone was at. Mm-hmm. And so there was this entertainment value for me in going to church that I never, ever, ever had experienced before. And so I just wanted to get your take on, entertainment or energy, or this, vitality that you bring, that I experienced at CSL Toronto, that now is happening at Unity Tucson. I mean, it's like partly it's just you and who you are, kind of thing, but what is that? Why, where does entertainment, or that sort of, that kind of energy come into play in your ministry?
Well, it's a huge part of my ministry. And I think that I think the reason that is because I did spend the majority of my life in theater, in musical theater, in being a performer and an entertainer. And the funny thing that happens is sometimes people maybe think that I don't take spiritual practice as seriously as other people who might be sitting on the mountaintop and, you know, taking it all very seriously. I'm like, no, I take spiritual practice very seriously, but I also like to enjoy my life. I like to have fun. And isn't that also spiritual practice? So I'm trying to show people that it doesn't need to all be, and it's not that I don't have reverence for what I do and for what I believe. What I'm saying is let's coalesce the reverence with celebration. I mean, isn't that what it's really all about? It's about celebrating this magnificent life that we are living.
I think anyone who has ever heard you sing Rolling River God can attest to the reverence and that, you know, that is present, that is being expressed, that is being felt, that is being shared, you know, whatever, however you want to say it. I mean, the first time, the most recent time, you know, I heard you, like, it's that's it, it's just extraordinary. It is so moving. It is so profound in experience. I mean, that song, I still to this day hear music before I hear lyrics when I hear a song. However, when I heard you sing that song for the first time, I heard the lyrics as well, and I just the imagery in it is so beautiful. The melody is so beautiful, and I guess the arrangement, the way you do it, it just for me resonates on this incredibly powerful, like it just gets me in my heart, you know, when I hear it. And that to me is, you know, equal to some of the most beautiful liturgical music that I have ever heard. And growing up Ukrainian Catholic, I've heard tons. And that's still some of my favorite music that even thinking about it right now, you know, I feel the experience in my body.
You know, I think that what that boils down to is, and I think this is a lesson for everyone, whether you are a singer or a performer or not. If you, and I think everybody has that. I mean, let's face it, we're all creative. Whether that creativity shows up as artistry, I think we need to break open our concepts of what artistry is, because every single one of us is an artist, because we're all utilizing this creative source to express our lives. But I often laugh because I feel like, in particular with that song, it's one of my favorite songs to sing. That, a song called Nearer Than the Air by Michael Gott. Get Ready My Soul by Daniel Nahmad. Like, those songs just resonate for me. And so having an authentic connection at a heart level is what I think you're experiencing, because I could get up there and just sing the lyrics and sing the song, but it's about that authentic experience in the moment. And the reason I say that it's funny is because I think in my years of being an actor and working on stage, and I had a very prolific life being an actor and working on stage. I don't think I ever had the kind of authentic experience that many people perceive actors as having. I don't think I ever had that kind of authentic experience until I went into ministry, and I kind of coalesced the two ideas together. I think if I were to go back to acting now, I'd be a much better actor than I ever was, because I've tapped into an authenticity that I don't think existed in my previous career. And I had a thought, as I keep going around this, actually I had a thought that I, around this, is that in that previous incarnation of my career path, if we're going to crudely give it a title, that was my career path. I had this idea that I was going to be an actor the rest of my life. That part of what I was searching for was the truth of the human experience. And that's part of what excited me. And so what I would look at is I would become the observer of human expression and experience. And then I would try to recreate that on stage through the roles that I played. Moving into ministry, I am still looking to understand the human experience.
Yeah.
but it's not from the outside in, it's from the inside out.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And so it's funny. I feel like in many ways I'm on the same path, but the direction has shifted to get me to ultimately what I think would have been the same location.
Honey Bunch, I love that. But Honey Bunch, I see your brow is furrowed. Does that mean you want to?
No, I just, yeah.
Okay, location. Interesting choice of word there.
Yeah. It's a crude use of language. Once again, I've proved my point.
Oh, wow. Okay, so, let's see. Not that there is any shortage of anything to talk about, but that just kind of like, there we go. Honey Bunch, what else?
Well, no, that just took me in a different direction than I thought we were going. So what was it I was going to ask you? Sorry, this is,
Did you say everything that you wanted to say about Eric Butterworth or Unity or?
yeah, I mean, okay. One of the things that I remember
There we go.
shift in subject matter, it seems, maybe it isn't, that one of the issues that I have in my studies and where it runs contrary to what Lassie is studying, and I'm kind of, peripherally picking up, is, and our cat is back to give me a chorus. So is the idea of cause and effect. And in particular, Jonathan, I remember you saying, Reverend Jonathan, but that I think in several talks that I heard you give in Toronto, where we were talking about significant things in our lives and moments in our lives, and we can't go back and change the past, right? Now, this is contrary to my understanding of, on a spiritual level, meaning this is our framework, this is our operating system, this is how we create our reality or experience individually. Is, to me, that's just a point of view, because we actually can change the past by changing our interpretation in this moment, which is where the power is, of a certain experience that may appear to us as being in our past, right? Because so in other words, like, yes, when you look at a linear time example, you would say, yeah, that makes sense. You're not going to go back and change your one decision that meant that down the road you moved across the ocean or whatever, and then if you'd stayed where you were, it would have been a way different life. The whole point is, for me, is there's more than one reality going on that is available to us, and you and Lassie are in this quantum classroom, where it's being hammered into us. And I've read a bit of the book, that everything's available all the time. The probable universe, plural universes, or pluriverse, as William James used to call it, they're all available to us. So why the fixation that we have on this one timeline, when we can actually change who we are now by refocusing our attention, which is our power, on an event or a feeling that we had as a child, or when we were 23, or when we had that romance that went a weird direction. We can send love, we can reframe and be just be more loving and and accepting of, and sort of not in a mentoring way, but reminding that version of us that, you know, all is well. Like you, as Abraham says, you never get it done and you never get it right. It's just like there's growth all the time, you know, whatever's coming, it's just, don't fret about it, you know?
Mhm.
So if we're able to do that, I think that's our version of time travel, right? That's really what's going on. We can remember that when we were 7 and this thing happened, or you felt something, because we can probably ask our bodies, like, where is this, you know, constriction or feeling of inadequacy centered, and what event might that have come from, or what did your big brother or something, or your father or your mother say to you, and you actually believed it, and then you took that with you in your IKEA bag and you've been dragging it the whole time, right? So do you feel different about that than you did a few years ago, or you feel the same?
Well, I think, so you've actually touched on all of the things that I actually am currently kind of in consideration around. Yeah, in the linear perception of time and space that we are seeming to exist in, you cannot change an event from the past. You can't. But you're absolutely right. You can change your relationship consciously to what that event means for you in terms of belief. And that will address how you move forward. Now, that's in the linear experience of time and space. At the quantum level, absolutely, you can change the event from the past, because the event from the past was simply the particularization of that infinite potentiality wave showing up in that way at that time in this thing called the linear experience of life. But all possibilities moved forth from that one point. And so we are living simultaneous expressions of life that are inclusive of all those possibilities. Now, if I make it a binary construct, I know I'm getting into big words and like people are like, wow, you're getting into these big philosophical ideas. I'm going to talk about a binary construct that will maybe help address this idea. So in 2018, January of 2018, I was in Hawaii, on the island of Kauai, and there was an experience that unfolded. You may have heard about it, I don't know, where everyone on Hawaii got one of those alerts on their phone, you know, like an Amber Alert, that said, and I'll tell you exactly what it said: incoming ballistic missile, this is not a drill, take immediate shelter.
Yeah.
Right? And so the rhetoric, the political rhetoric between the United States and North Korea at the time was very volatile. And so there was no reason to not believe that this was actually happening, especially since it said, this is not a drill, seek immediate shelter. And so I was in Hawaii. I get this notification on my phone early in the morning. My sister was there. You know, me being the minister, I walked down and I say, she was brushing her teeth. She hadn't seen her phone. I said, well, I don't want to alarm you. However, this message has just, you know, very calm and collected. This message has just come through on my phone, and I think that we should probably act accordingly, right? But we're thinking, well, what do we do? What do you do? Like, if this is the bomb that is, you know, going, there's no real place out in the middle of the ocean, because you're really out in the middle of the ocean. There's really no place to go that is going to be sufficient to really, you know, mitigate the effects of an atomic bomb. Even though we were on Kauai, and I thought, well, if it's on its way, it's probably going to Oahu. They're probably going to target Honolulu. So we're probably okay over here on this other island for a little bit. But these are all the things that are going through my head for the 37 minutes until we got the retraction and said, no, this is not the case. So the reason that I bring this up is because I believe I experienced a quantum leap.
Mm-hmm.
I have come to the realization now that I experienced a quantum leap that I set into motion in my own use of this infinite consciousness, where when I got that message, it was absolutely real. And through the use of my consciousness, I decided that this was not the experience that I was wanting to have. So I shifted to another quantum reality on another timeline and moved forward from there, where it was a mistake. It was a mistaken message that was sent out. But I do hold to this idea that on that other quantum timeline, it absolutely was real. The bomb did it what it did. And who knows what my experience following that was, whether I was alive or dead, even though I don't believe in alive and dead. I only believe in infinite life. And that's my personal belief. That the essence that is me is still having an experience on that trajectory over there. But I have decided to make my conscious awareness and perception to be on this trajectory over here. And so, can I go back and change that experience? No, because the experience happened. The experience was changed. And both experiences happened at the same time. So if you look at it in a binary way, there's nothing to change. There is nothing to change. All I can do is address the perception of where I am in this moment moving forward. And maybe I can have another quantum leap and say, oh, I'm going to leap over to that other trajectory. But I also think that as the expression continues to unfold and evolve and unfold and evolve, and we're consistently breaking open in these, even if we're in the binary, if the perception of binary choices, it becomes exponential in the potential. And so I think the further away we get from that choice we made, the less likelihood there is in this trajectory that we will have to being able to go back and shift something. I don't know if I've made any sense at all, but it makes total sense in my mind.
I follow that. I follow it, I believe. And I understand the necessity of using that binary, like it's real, because you need to record it as this is something that happened in the past. It's a done deal, right? Now, I would say that another way of looking at it that for me makes it land better is to say that it is happening. It's happening. It's like right now it's happening.
Yeah.
And what's happening within me is still like that's that thing of it's happening and this other thing is happening and this other thing is happening all around. That's the field, right? And what am I choosing out of that? It's all just selection. It's I am selecting this. And if you put that gerund of like ing on it, I am doing, I am making, I'm thinking, I'm believing, I am loving, I am being, then it sort of calms my mind and reassures my heart that it's like, this is where the thing of we're always a choice is like, okay, yeah, that's, I can get behind it in that context of remove the other tenses and just say it's an ongoing flow. And therefore, you know, my choice to pay attention, to put my attention on this aspect and this feeling and this knowing of joy or one of my favorite things I read recently is Joseph Campbell saying, find the thing that brings joy and it will burn out all of the pain. Like, because they can't exist at the same time, right? They can't be two in one, right? And if you get the joy, if you find that feeling of love that you have holding, you know, a pet or a child or a beautiful flower or whatever, that's you being the most powerful. And that then everything else fades into the background still doing what it's doing, but not selected by you as this smile on the face of God kind of thing.
Yeah. So, we're back to Marie Kondo a little bit. But I'm actually now you're getting to see my philosophical thinking process unfold right in front of you. Because now I'm starting to think, I don't know that I agree with Joseph Campbell in that, because I am of the mind that while it is possible we can derive joy from the things outside the self, I firmly believe that it's a much more powerful proposition to infuse joy into the things that are in our sphere of experience. That is an inside job, and that what we perceive as a thing that sparks joy within us is actually what we've infused the inner joy into that thing, and it is simply being reflected back to us.
Exactly what I was just thinking.
And yeah, the perception is we derive joy, but it is not that we're ever deriving we don't derive happiness, we don't derive joy. We are vessels of happiness, of joy, of love, to use that word. And as we express that, as we infuse that into the experience of our lives, that is what we are met with. And so that's the power for me of this thing called life. It is a powerful place to say that I am the one who is creating this experience that I am having.
Now here's, okay.
Go ahead.
A question of joy. Isn't it also about allowing for that joy to be activated?
Yeah.
So, and hence the reflection of it.
Yeah. There has to be an openness for sure. You have to be open to it.
Glenn is going to come back. I'm pretty sure that he can hear me. And I want to go back to choice, because one of the things that is talked about in Science of Mind regularly, dare I say religiously, is that we are always at choice. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I've said before. And then actually we had our very first podcast episode way back was with Reverend Kelly Bershinsky. And at the very end, we were talking about this concept of, are we or aren't we? Does it have to do with awareness or something like that? And he read something from an Eckhart Tolle book that kind of made me think like, okay. And so now, after being in this class for a while, what I like better and works for me is that we are always choosing. That, because there is this quantum field, that is infinite potentiality. And so all that's like, there's this many and that's it. But, that's infinite potentiality. There's that experience again, is that we're always choosing, just in having experience, we are choosing and collapsing or particularizing or whatever term you want to use. So being at choice to me is sort of like a there's something finite about it. Whereas choosing, back to the power of the gerund, Glenn, it's just ongoing. And so I guess sort of like the choice in, while the choosing is always ABC, always be choosing. Glenn just popped that up. Is that awareness, and consciousness. Do we want to be conscious with our choosing, or are we just, living life by default versus by design? So that is something that I think, especially since starting this class, has really sort of landed for me a bit more. It's just, it's not even ABC, always be choosing. You're just choosing, like just by the nature of being, you're just choosing. So it's really YJC. You're just,
you know what? You've actually just, for me, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm doing this, because I had such a problem. So So by way of preface, I have to say, there were some things in the recent chapter of the book that we're reading, which is the Everything Answer book by Amit Goswami, right? That's the book we're reading.
Yeah.
And in the last chapter, I actually had a real problem with this notion of, what he is proposing in terms of we're moving in the direction of what felt to me like becoming automatons, that we're moving in the direction of, embodying these archetypes, right? And it seemed like he was saying we're moving out of the realm of choice or choosing in the way that he was describing it. And I had a real reaction to that. I didn't talk about it in my paper or anything, but I had a real reaction to that. You should see the notes that are in my book. I'm like, I don't think so. Absolutely not. No, I don't agree with this. And yet the way you've just described it actually to me says, well, maybe that is actually the direction we're moving in. Because here's the thing. If we are always choosing, what is it that we are choosing? Because if we conceptualize what it is we are choosing, we are saying we have limited potential because we can only choose from a limited construct of what we understand. So if we are always choosing, maybe that is too limited.
Whoa.
Oh boy.
Amen.
Because the thing too, so we're moving away from the need for conscious awareness to live this expression of life, and actually moving much more into the subjective, below the level of awareness, experience and expression.
But that's not what I was just saying. Like I was saying that like it's happening. And so it's up to us to choose with awareness.
But awareness requires limiting the construct of ideas.
Well, is it? Or is it, how am I using my mind? Is it that idea of, trained mind versus untrained mind?
Yeah, I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, my mind is expanding a little bit now too.
Yeah.
In this incarnation, on this plane of action, I love the idea that I am always choosing. I just want to be very clear.
Yeah.
That I actually prefer that construct. And yet I can open myself up to the idea that that very notion may also be unexpectedly limiting. That's all.
And is that limiting in the previous statement you made about language is too limiting? Like we don't have the words. There's no point in sometimes using the words, or when we use them, we should be aware that they're insufficient to describe really what's going on.
I think we should always live in the awareness that language and words are insufficient to describe. But I think I just figured out a way to construct it a little bit, maybe more clearly, utilizing crude language. I'm going to go back to this binary concept for just a moment, even though this, I think, can be applied to the concept of infinite choosing. But if we look at a binary construct, the minute we have an awareness that there is a choice to be made, we've actually put edges around the potential. That's what I'm saying, is that the minute we put edges around the potential, we are living in a limited construct. And so we actually are no longer choosing from the unlimited construct.
So this is kind of like what he was talking about in that same chapter, Amit Goswami, in the Everything Answer book, about experiencing versus being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is where I think flow has to be, like, if I cobble together something and say, this would be my optimal set of circumstances. So what are the components of that, right? So there's this idea of, I won't tell you where it's from right now, but it's just knowing there's a steady confidence that all is unfolding in a constructive way for my experience, and my experience enriches, outward from there. So there's the confidence and just relaxing into and trusting that whatever is going to occur is beneficial, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other parts of that are my desire, my preference. What do I prefer to have in general? But like, there's going to be some specifics when you get down to the binary. Choose one, I'll take that one. But so then there's the expectation that that's just going to happen. So there's the action, the expectation, anticipating that it's just going to come to be. I'm going to be, and I will meet up with that event or experience or object or person. And my imagination and the feelings are the other parts of that. So my imagination is more like an active component, and the feelings are like my embodying what it will be like, what it is like to have that, to experience that, to be that. So when I put my attention on, again, we have to give specific examples, I guess, but put my attention on, I want to have a Douglas fir Christmas tree, 7 feet tall,
This one.
I'm getting that. That's already happened. I smell it. I can see putting it into the stand. I just love putting on the decorations, and my family's there, and there's people around it, and they're admiring it, and all that stuff. So, but there's also a pulling back from that, and just a general knowing that that's always happening for the best for me, right? So I think the flow thing is like taking a pulling out from the tight focus, like panning back and just accepting that. Like if you were doing a show and there's all these people running around and there's scripts and there's, dance routines and there's pauses and at a certain point, you just got to let go, right? And then everyone's doing their thing and you're doing your thing by just letting go, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about core belief. Your core belief that all is unfolding perfectly for your highest benefit. That's I'm just going to make an interpretation of what I've essentially heard you say. That to me, I would say, is a core belief. And then what you're saying is that you pull out of that, let's say the Douglas fir imagery, that you make a choice around the type of tree that you would like to have, right? Well, does that not, and so the question that comes up for me is this: does that mean that anything outside of the Douglas fir, let's say, I don't know, I actually don't know Christmas trees, so I'm just going to pull a tree out of my, a blue spruce. Would that work? I don't know.
Sure.
Let's just say that you had some other type of tree. Would you be less in alignment with the core belief because it was not the tree you expected, or not? Because if you are less in alignment with your core belief, it means to me that that belief is not so ingrained in you that it is a core belief, because you can be driven away from that belief by something in the world of form.
I don't think it would bother me that much. I think being surprised, being open to being surprised. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but there's a C.S. Lewis book, Surprised by Joy, which is more about his Christianity, but like being open to adaptation, I guess, like that. Oh, yeah, that came along and I didn't really want that, but I kind of like it. It's really, so does that affect your core belief? I don't think so. I think it's still in the general ballpark. And I think that's what I mean by flow, is like, you know, there's always room for getting. Is it really as crude as that Rolling Stone song? You know, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. Is it that?
I don't
Not quite
know.
that, but it's something similar to that, right? It's like you're projecting something and you get this thing as a result of this ongoing projection of who you are, what you're really expecting, even though you say you're expecting this thing, what you really imagined, even though you thought you imagined this thing, because you got something different.
Yeah.
But is it still a beneficial experience? I think you put that in the category of like, that's a win. That's me feeling good, you know?
Yeah. So you've now, I think, just proven the point of why it is so important for us to release attachments to outcome.
Mhm.
Okay.
And and also what I was talking about earlier about, and you've just mentioned it in your own language, to project out the truth of your beingness, as opposed to thinking that you're going to derive anything from outside the self. That I think if we are in that place of projecting, let's just use joy again, if we are projecting that joy, then, and that is rooted in a core belief that joy is my birthright. Let's just say that that's a core belief that I hold, that in releasing attachment to outcome, I cannot experience anything outside the self that is not reflective of that inner joy that I am projecting. And so I need to let go of any attachments to outcome. I think that we're actually proving that point.
Which is then where, and again, back to the Butterworth thing, resistance. I think we fail to notice where resistance comes in. Because if we put resistance in, then we start having to define what we mean. If we remove this resistance, then we're completely at oneness with energy, God. There's nothing separating because there's no resistance, right?
Right. Yeah.
So the Borg were right as well.
Resistance is futile.
So many references in this one.
Reverend Jonathan, what are your thoughts on affirmations? Since we've talked about beliefs and core beliefs and other things, what are your thoughts on affirmations?
In general, I prefer affirmations over denials.
Yeah.
When people are using them in a way to shift thinking from something that is undesired to something that is more positive, more supportive, more life affirming,
I think that they are very powerful tools. I'm a believer in affirmations. However, this goes to my quality of life formula. Have I ever taught? I'm sure I've brought this up in class. So now this is going to be one of those things I have to write it out. I'll do it in Sharpie and then I'll put it in front of the camera.
Okay.
So that you can see. I'm sure you've seen this before.
It's been a while since I've been, in class with you as a student.
Well, this may have been something that came up in a class you were in with me, but it has changed.
Okay.
So at one point, the quality of life formula was this: thoughts plus beliefs plus feelings equals the quality of your life.
Okay.
Right? Do you remember possibly that? But I have now changed it.
Okay.
So it is now thoughts to the power of beliefs and all of that to the power of feeling equals the quality of your life.
Okay, I just keep holding it because for those people listening, I just want them to know there's a mathematical formula on a sticky that Reverend Jonathan is holding up. And on the left side of the formula, open bracket, capital T to the power of B, closed bracket to the power of F equals capital QL. This is the second podcast we've done where we've come up with a mathematical formula, or you have one where a mathematical formula or at least mathematical symbols have come into play for what it is we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's good.
But the whole point of this is to say that we have thoughts, right? We have thoughts. those are exponentially addressed by our beliefs. And that is all exponentially addressed by our feelings, right? And so if we work in any direction to address any one of those aspects, our thoughts, our beliefs, or our feelings, we're going to find the way to create shift in the quality of our life. However, because it is exponential, for me, if I go to the place of feeling, there is a greater potential for more quickly shifting the experience in my quality of life. And that's what brings me back to affirmation. If you don't feel it, it will not work.
Yeah.
If you are just saying it, but it is not backed by that exponential belief and the exponential feeling on top of that, it's going to not do anything.
Yep.
So affirmations are as powerful a tool as you believe and feel them to be.
I believe that too. With that, I wonder then if the idea of, and I think I first heard Wayne Dyer say it with affirmations, say them, say them, say them, say them, fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something that will happen. There is a shift that will take place if you keep repeating the same words, the same phrase over and over and over again. And I wonder if that is true, or if there isn't some feeling that is injected into it, into that phrase or those words, that they will just remain empty words.
I would say that is true, and here is why.
Okay.
Because if it's your thoughts to the power of belief, the more you engage the thoughts, you now are exponentially moving into the place of embodying them as beliefs. They can be embodied as beliefs. I'll use it's a horrible way of phrasing it, but if you speak a lie often enough, it becomes a truth, right? It's the same idea. Your thoughts, if you speak the thought out loud as an affirmative statement, the more you actively engage that, I think the more likely you are to embody it as a belief. And as you have done that, you will then begin to start to have the feeling around that. It like I said, it works in both ways.
Yeah.
However, if you state an affirmation and it doesn't work for you, where I would go now personally is to say, what is the feeling I have? What is that feeling engendered from that statement? Is it in alignment with what I want this statement to feel like?
Yeah. That also just made me thinking of how potentially powerful the detention exercise of, writing something on a chalkboard 100 times that is maybe negative or, down-putting or something. Not only are you thinking it as you're writing it, you're probably muttering it at the same time, and you're physically writing it and, having a connection and experience on this multi-sensorial level. Oh, that just, wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's also why, I always encourage people to never pray in silence. Always pray out loud.
And that's so interesting, because that was a big thing in practitioner studies when it came time to, from the very, very beginning. Dr. James had someone at the beginning of class and at the top of class once, I think from the second, maybe third class, and that was it. But someone was doing an opening treatment, someone was doing a closing treatment. And we had one opportunity to write one, and the rest of them were all live on the spot, spontaneous. And so many people had just, there was this shyness and this, lack of confidence. And really, what if I do it wrong? What if I miss a step? What if I put them in the wrong order? What if I don't say the right words? And eventually over time, practice, you get into the flow, you get better, you kind of, the 5 steps are the 5 steps. Maybe you put them in a certain order, maybe you don't. Generally, the last 2 are kind of at the end, but the more you practice, the more confident you get, and the more confidence, you exude, and the more you're in the flow, and just the more powerful it becomes. Even for myself, always, always, always treat out loud. And I remember reading or hearing or both or whatever that Ernest Holmes in his head silently. And I'm like, I mean, for me, I will not even continue. And it's just not powerful. Hearing my own words, well, they're not even my words sometimes, but hearing the words as they're being spoken just tends to fuel the passion and the feeling and the vitality that is coming through when it's happening. So it's interesting when people pray. And I mean, for them, I guess, it works or it doesn't silently.
And that's my approach. I want to be very clear. That's my approach. And I will encourage people to treat out loud. However, I'm going to let both you and Dr. Ernest Holmes off the hook and say technique is anything that works.
Mm-hmm.
So if it works, awesome.
Yeah.
What I find works more frequently with people is when they get into the habit of praying out loud or treating out loud. Doesn't language. That's why I've started saying affirmative prayer treatment, because I'm like taking the unity and the religious science and melding them together and saying, I'm just going to call it affirmative prayer treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That's very apt.
Anything that works. Sorry?
It's very apt.
APT. There you go.
APT, yes.
Good.
Oh, that's great. I still have, maybe if we do another podcast together, we could go more of a deep dive into, especially since it will have been after you become a Unity minister, where it's a bit more Bible or Jesus centered, I find, than the CSL approach. To do something on the Jesus persona and the different ways of looking at that. I'm actually reading, so I've got this out of the library. It's the Stephen Mitchell book, Joseph and the Way of Forgiveness, where he retells the story of Joseph and his brothers and the whole thing of him embodying forgiveness.
Yeah.
But the one that really, so he's married to Byron Katie. They wrote books together, and the one that he wrote on Jesus, the Gospel according to Jesus. Have you read that?
I have not, no.
It's on audiobook. It's about 2.5, 3 hours. And it's like the stripped down version of the teachings of the, what is this person? What are they all about? And he breaks it down into 4 kind of very basic things, that he existed, that he was a healer, that he was a teacher, and there's one other thing. But it's just I really like the way he does it, because he has so much study in the Tao, and he's done translations of Homer's The Odyssey and Beowulf and whatever. But his way of distilling these ideas, where you can kind of cross-pollinate them with the Taoist approach, it's really beautiful, and it's so simple. And I'd be really interested to hear what your not just your how his approach to the Jesus story lands for you, but also just your general how you've been able to weave those stories in, and those parables. Because like what you were saying about praying, that idea that Jesus has of like, don't be the Yahoo on the corner praying out loud, like virtue signaling. Look at me, how holy I am. I'm throwing, stuff on my face and I'm wailing. And it's like, just go into your closet and pray quietly. I'm not sure whether he means like out loud quietly or just totally within, right? So maybe that would be an option for later on. But
the fact that you bring up that very thing makes me think. I part of this journey of taking over a Unity Church as a religious science minister is, of course, there's additional education that is required by the Unity organization for me to become licensed as a Unity minister. So I just actually finished a class in prayer and meditation. And we had that very discussion around, around that quote from scripture. And we had to come up with our own interpretation of it. And I said, I think we need to move away from the construct of thinking that it is a literal understanding of, do I pray out loud or do I pray, silently? And understand that what is actually being expressed here is, it's not about the exterior connection. It is about the interior feeling and belief. That I can pray out loud, but if I'm not connected, within, it will do nothing. And if I'm doing it just for the sake of expression to the outside world, it will do nothing. It's about really finding that space within.
And to follow on that, back to the Butterworth thing, are you praying outside to a God, a person, or are you praying as God? Like, do you like just know what's going on? Like that's the main thing there. He said something in this talk where he was saying about the prodigal son story, and he said something that was like, whoa, I'd never heard that one before. When the son goes off, and the language is such constructed in such a simple way, but it's still ambiguous, where he says he goes off into the far country and he does all the having a good time, hits the bottom, and comes back, and before he's even like halfway home, his father welcomes him. But he says, we don't even know whether the person telling the story means, was he away for 3 days? Was he away for 3 years? Was it 3 lifetimes? Like when he said that, I was like, oh, right, this could be like growth. Like how much did you put into all of that, expending that energy and not coming back to a truth about like, I am, who I am, the Myrtle Fillmore thing, I'm a child of God, that, like, that blew my mind yesterday. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty deep.
Yeah, it is.
That's not a question, maybe, but
yeah, it's not. I'm just sitting in contemplation of that as well. That you did sort of tacitly ask the question around praying to or praying from, and I say it's neither. I pray as.
Okay. Pray as, yeah.
Gentlemen, we're at hours. I know there was a little break in there, but I'd say we're around 2 hours, and it could keep going. So maybe we do need to do this another time.
Yeah. You could break this one up into multiple.
Yeah, I could. I probably won't. Again, if Joe Rogan can go for 5+ hours, 2 hours, come on.
Yeah.
And it's like an audiobook, 7 hours, 9 hours, 11 hours. What's a 2-hour podcast? So, okay, this has been such a great conversation. It's one of my favorites so far. I'm just so grateful that we had the opportunity to do this, the 3 of us together.
Yeah.
And so there are smiles in all our faces right now for those who are listening. And so we're going to continue with the smiles with this next section, which is like, usually we say, to lighten things up. Not that things need to be lightened up, but it's the rapid fire question round. And still no name. I don't know, maybe at some point a listener will write in or some say, hey, call it this. But right now it's just the rapid fire question round, which is basically 60 seconds during which Glenn asks you quickly a bunch of questions. Most of them I think are, this or that, but something, just answer off the top of your head, no thought put into it. It's just a way for us to kind of, lighten things up, get to know you a little bit more on a different level. And then at the end of it, there is a prize that you win.
Okay.
So, Honey Bunch, tell me when you're, if you have any further instructions and when you're set to go, because I will watch. No, I'm going to set a timer.
There's just one that obviously answer as quickly as you can. There is one right near the top where, You may be tempted to be too thoughtful. Just anyway, quickly as you can, please.
Keep it brief is what I'm
That's
hearing.
Okay, so you ready, Les, with the timer?
On your mark, get set, and go.
Okay. Do you sing in the shower?
Yes.
How many tattoos do you have?
1.
What is your favorite spiritual principle?
God is all there is.
Which do you prefer, swimming or skiing?
Swimming.
Seinfeld or Friends?
Friends.
Quantum consciousness or God?
Quantum consciousness.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Books or movies?
Movies.
Dogs or cats?
Neither. Both.
Dogs are okay. Consciousness or energy?
Consciousness.
Waterfalls or water slides?
Water slides.
Showers or baths?
Showers.
Cher or Lady Gaga?
Gaga.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Both.
Exercising the body or the mind?
Both.
Appetizer or dessert?
Appetizer.
Did you ring the bell?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. You're good. That was fine.
That's good. Okay.
Okay, so Glenn Sheridan, tell Reverend Jonathan what he's won.
Okay. This is going to be a short one. It's from the book.
Which is, you're going to have to read it.
It is a book, Certain World. It's W.H. Auden's book of, I guess, biographical aphorisms, his thoughts on things, but then he also peppers about 2/3 of the book with his favorite sayings by other, from literature and this kind of thing. So I picked for you, in the subject of nature. It's quite short, but this is him saying rather than someone else. He says, many years ago, as now, my mind strove with eager delight to study and discover the creative life of nature. It is eternal unity in manifold manifestation. The great is little, the little is great, and everything after its kind, ever changing and yet preserving itself, near and far and near, and so shaping and reshaping itself. To marvel at it is what I am here for.
Beautiful.
Yep.
And so it is.
I'm marveling at the birds in our backyard once again. They're just
Being chased by our cat, maybe.
All right. So now, because Lasia, you never get to see this. This is actually the view.
Oh, wow.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, stop talking so we can see it. Okay.
Oh, I'm talking. So I activate my video there. Now it should pop up for you.
Wow. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And I would show it to everybody in class on Thursdays, but it's already dark by the time we get to class. So
Take a picture and make it your background.
I've thought about that.
There was one on Facebook that was that similar image at the big with the hook there with the, is that a bird feeder? Is that
Yeah, you can hang a bird feeder there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. So is that actual desert, or does it just sort of look like desert
No, it's
neighborhood?
yeah. So the unity of Tucson, we have a 16 and a half acre campus
Mm-hmm.
of Tucson, and we're in the foothills of the Santa Catalina Mountains. So we're on the north end of the city. We're like in the city. Well, technically we're just outside the city limits, but that's just, boundaries and limitations that we put on our consciousness.
Yeah.
But we're like in the city, in a neighborhood that's a little more affluent, a little more well-to-do up here, but we have 16 and a half acres. It's a gorgeous property. We have an outdoor labyrinth and a meditation path, a walking path for meditation, and ramada and gazebo and our sanctuary and a class building and all kinds of stuff.
What's a ramada? What's a ramada?
Oh, like a pergola.
A what?
Like a pergola.
Oh, like a structure.
Yeah, it's like a structure. It's open on all the sides, but has a roof.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a gazebo.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's funny because we have what we call the ramada, but we also have what we call the gazebo.
Okay.
I don't know how to define the difference, except the gazebo to me always seems smaller and is usually round.
Yeah. Oh man, it's beautiful. I look forward to the day when we come to visit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
look forward to that as well.
All right. Okay. So before we go, Reverend Jonathan, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, find out more about you, the work you do, Unity, whatever it is that you want to share, where would someone go?
I would say these days, go to unitytucson.com. Tucson, by the way, is spelled Tucson. A lot of times people will invert the S and the C. But if you think of Tucson,
yeah.
That's how it's spelled. So unitytucson.com is where I am serving as a senior minister. Also, I've got a YouTube, youtube.com/Tucson New Thought is what is essentially my personal YouTube. It's got all of my Sunday services that we do from Unity, and previous to that, before I was at Unity, I had started a spiritual community called Tucson New Thought. Mm-hmm. That's been incorporated into Unity here. I'm on Facebook, but like you, I don't use Facebook as readily any longer. I'm kind of moving away from social media just in general. Mm-hmm. So I don't know really if I want to let people know about social media.
You know what? That's great. UnityTucson.com and then Tucson New Thought on YouTube. Those are some great places for people to connect with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. This has been such an extraordinary, fun, engaging, fulfilling, expansive, entertaining, enlightening, just on and on and on and on and on conversation. I am absolutely thrilled and delighted that we had an opportunity to do it and would love to do it again one day.
Absolutely.
So whether it's with what Glenn suggested and or something else, whatever. It's just always such a delight to be in company, in community with you. And I'm so grateful that we're in class together for another, however many months or whatever, having our minds blown and our, beingness expanded moment by moment. So thank you very much. Thanks, Honey Bunch, for co-steering the ship today, and I'm gonna keep that image of that IKEA bag. That is just such a great image.
Maybe the little IKEA monkey beside it holding it. Remember the IKEA monkey with the little fur coat?
No.
You don't remember this? Okay, never mind.
No, you know what I will throw in though is when we went to IKEA one time when Milana was really little, I don't know, 4, 5, maybe. Not even. We went to the cafeteria because my mom was visiting, and this is when we were still in Toronto. And my mom always likes to go to the cafeteria to get a little snack or something. So we were in line, and people had their trays, and they're pulling them along or pushing them along, those little cafeteria belts or whatever to the cashiers. And there were all these trays that had, I guess, the daily special on, which just looked like these 2 white mounds with brown on their plate. And Milana, she's seeing all these things going by and she goes, ew, ice cream and meatballs. Who'd want that? It wasn't ice cream. It was potatoes.
Yeah.
And meatballs. And I just thought it was hilarious. This little kid, like that's what she saw. Are you showing? That's the IKEA monkey?
Yep.
I don't remember that at all. Glenn's showing us a little picture of a really cute little monkey in some massive
fur kind of thing, sheepskin. You don't remember this? Okay.
That looks like a painting.
Well, that one is a painting, but it's a better.
Those aren't even like IKEA colors. What? I don't understand. Anyway. Okay. All right. So thank you. It's been fun. It's been awesome. We're going to do it again. People know how to get in touch with you. Everyone who tuned in, everyone who is listening, who is watching, thank you for tuning in once again to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? I am Lastia. I'm here with Glenn. We're here with Reverend Jonathan, and we're so grateful for your enthusiasm, your support, your engagement. If you like what you have heard, then please subscribe, please like, please do whatever it is to show your appreciation on whatever platform you're on. And we look forward to hanging out with you once again for another episode of Who Do You Think You Are sometime soon. Bye for now. This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Reverend Jonathan Zenz. Music, Vasco Lorenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, Sakma Staircase, copyright 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lastia Cahoot Soul Excavator, please visit www.lastiacahoot.com. If you like what you've heard, please like, subscribe, and or let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning into Who Do You Think You Are?